What's going on? Facebook, YouTube, social media. Today I'm up in the air today, you know what I mean? Like I'm up on the rooftop. I'm up on the rooftop. Go ahead and do this video as promised yesterday. I'm gonna do another video based off of the signs and symbolisms that we see every day in our life. Try to give a new outlook on it, try to give a spin on it, try to reveal certain things. Uh, I really didn't really get, I guess, a large viewing on the last video that I did last night with the Curious One thing, or the video prior to that with the swastika. So at the same time, I really don't know how to gauge it. Like, I'm well informed on a lot of different issues, but I don't really know what you guys want to hear. So in that sense, like, I don't know if I should keep on doing it, but what I am going to do is I'm going to keep banging out these videos. So with that said and done, I basically want to deal with the symbol that I want to deal with today is actually 2 in 1, and that's the cross and the ankh. And the reason why I want to deal with the two, because we know, as far as the symbolism and where how it's traced to Christianity, pardon me, how it's traced to Christianity as well as ancient Egypt. Like, you could watch a documentary on YouTube and they'll tell you that the cross is actually a mimic, or it stems from the ankh, and how the Virgin Mary and the story of Christ is actually stemmed back to ancient Egypt with Isis and Osiris and things of that nature, right? And granted, most of the time that we're given this information, we're like, the people that did it is because they wanted to reveal the truth or still a people's history and things of that nature, right? And I think, like I said before, I think some of that is true, but I think everything is not always 100%. The truth always is broken down and fragmented, especially when you're in the lower portions of society and people really don't want you to get the whole truth. So in saying that, I think that's part of, yes, that could be part of the reason, but I think another part of the reason is simply just they both mean two different things, but they're really, really related in a sense. And I think where the change had to come about, because the change had to come about in time. And I'm a strong believer that part of the Egyptians' journey through death and coming back, I believe that they had to go through one people to get back to their own people. And it was like a journey, right? So I believe during the course of them going through one people, their realities and their truth still came out through that people. You know what I mean? And it came out because there's a reason, because fundamentally there's a lot of the same things dealing with the cross and the ankh. But then there's obviously some physical differences. Like, prime example, we know that a cross is basically two lines, one going horizontal, you know what I'm saying, one going vertical. So we understand that concept. But with the ankh, we know that one has a sort of like, we wouldn't call it an oval or a circle. We all know what an ankh looks like, right? If not, you don't supposed to be on this video anyway, right? So I believe they represent two different things, and they represent two different processes, but dealing with the same thing, right? And I think on one hand, a lot of misinformation has been given out on both of these signs and symbols. Like, prime example, I've revealed in a video prior to this how the cross was considered a sign of Jesus eluding death, or the science of eluding death is within inside the cross, and it can be revealed through sacred geometry and rearranging the pieces. But then you have to have other elements. You have to understand the story of Christ and things of that nature, right? But as I was saying in the video yesterday, and I was saying that you got to understand that English has several, it comes from several different mother branches of languages, and one of them is the Indo strain, which takes you to India and the Sanskrit and all of that. And then when they took on these different words from these different cultures, some of the sounding stayed the same, but sometimes the words got altered a little bit. So when I was saying with Christ was an alteration of the word Krishna. So when you see we associate Christ with the cross, right? But we don't associate Christ with Krishna. The same way that a lot of people might not associate the cross with the ankh. And why I say that, if you study the story of Krishna and you understand Hinduism, and you understand the concept of India, they meditate a lot. So, but they really didn't hide it in Christianity. It's in Christianity if you understand and know what you're looking for, right? So what I mean by that is this. It represents that hollow part of the ankh. I've read in the Black Conscious Movement where people say it represents the female, a portion of the female anatomy, and I seen them go really, really deep. And I think that I was like, wow, that's dangerous, because as much as we all love the female anatomy, well, men that is, and I'm like, I love the female anatomy. You know what I'm saying? And I think where they associated why they went to that, because the ankh means eternal life, right? So of course we know life comes from the female womb, so I can see where they would make that association. But in actuality, that's not what it meant. The ankh showed the presence of meditation, or because when you meditate, it's considered hollowing out your mind. You're creating space. You're creating a hollow spot within your head. So that was the science. And when you understand its portions and its moments in time, where as though the dark forces rise up amongst the population of the inhabitants of the earth, and it causes them to fill with rage and things of that nature. And one of the biggest things to combat that is meditation. So it's the hollowing out, and that's our whole Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. You know, you create that space. Whereas though the cross also has like a totally different meaning, and it's a process, but all of it can have traces and roots to dealing with the mind and the psyche. Like prime example, when you see the cross was a method, especially crucifixion, was, we all know, was a method that the Romans utilized for criminals, right? But it was a representation that the cross was a sign, a symbol of punishment, which was called quartering. And what quartering was, what they would do is they would take an individual and they would tie a rope around the individual's extremities, his arms, his legs, and they would tie each rope to a horse, and they would have the four horses run off in different directions. And what it would do is it would basically rip the body apart, right? But mind dictates to body, and the same is above is below. So before process can really become a physical manifestation, it has to have this reality planted in the consciousness of the mind. It has to become a reality in the mind first. So this is a process that they also do to what they may consider or deem a criminal on a higher level mentally. Like, this is how they persecute what they consider evil geniuses. And what the process is, or what the horses is attributed to other people's minds. And they throw their minds by way of meditation into your mind when you're asleep. And the whole goal is when they're in the dark and they're meditating and they're zoning, it's like they're taking your mind and they're pulling and they're stretching your mind. So if you get If you get more than one individual doing it, you can actually go crazy. Most of the time you see this sign here. And what this sign actually is a tribute to is the horns. It's the horns. And what that is two people conspire. Two people, two brothers, and they'll throw their minds in one individual and they'll both go in different directions. And what that does is that gives the person that they're doing it to, it curses them with polarities. That's their whole bipolar. It gives a person bipolar. It makes a person bipolar. You know what I'm saying? Like they 1 minute they on this swing, 1 moment is on this swing. And as I told you before, if you watch one of my last videos where I was telling you is certain things that when you go to court, especially at night and things of that nature, is certain ways that you can defend yourself in doing that. Like prime example, if one of the hats that the Pope of Rome uses and wears, right? It's symbolic to a process of how you can defend yourself against that. And what it is you have to pull both sides of your mind. You have to pull them back together. And you can do that by reading. If you don't, they're just gonna pull. Man, it's pros and cons and everything. You know what I'm saying? But you don't, if anything, you don't want to be quartered. You don't want to be like, if you look at a lot of the stuff that, if you study the psychological profile and a lot of stuff that Jesus did in the New Testament, right? There's books on it. I'm not the only one. This is like not like some divine revelation. There are people that now, if you study from a psychological perspective and you study the character that they portrayed in the New Testament, it was a person suffering from mental aberrations. Like he had all the elements of a mentally ill person on certain levels. Like it was just certain elements. It was just like really, if you study psychology, you know what I'm saying? So everything is repaired. Like I'm a firm believer in, like, they pump a lot of people up with medicine and things of that nature. And if people realize how much of their mind can be stabilized and fixed by simple meditation and reading, you know what I mean? Like it works wonders. Like reading keeps old people from their Alzheimer and their forgetfulness. Like sometime even now when I'm traveling throughout the course of the day, like say something as small as, like, I pay attention to the little things. Like I might grab a pair of sneakers and I might sit them down, and at the same time I might be grabbing a shirt or something like that, and I'll come back and I'll be like, yo, where the sneakers at? Like I'll have to, like, you know what I'm saying? Like I misplaced where I put the sneakers at. When that happens to me, the first thing I say to myself, I say, okay, if it happens more than once, I say, okay, I gotta tighten up my screws. Meaning I gotta read. I gotta pull. I have to pull my mind back together because it's going out too far in too many different directions. And that process is called cohesion. Is when you pull everything back together. And that's a major process of having a cognition and having that mind of being able to study, having an analytical mind. So, but having your mind stretched out and all of that, it's benefits in that as well. The difference between that is the difference between Judaism and Islam. You know what I mean? Like they both represent two different ends of the same stick, but it's polarities. Islamic is based more off of a broadness or a vastness of mind, where Judaism is more tedious. They actually consider Islam as father and Judaism as the mother in white culture. Like the whites acknowledge the Arabs as their fathers and the Jewish nation as their mother. And that's all facts. That's like if you were to go into a Freemason lodge, especially one of the biggest Freemason lodges in downtown Philadelphia. First thing you do is when you go in there, you go take a tour, and then you see these artifacts in these glass cases, and you'll see Arabic writing as well as Hebrew writing. So they definitely mess with both systems, and they definitely do the polarities of both systems. Like prime example, the older culture, even in hip hop and everything else, it was based off of Islam in its essence, meaning the vastness of it. Now the new era that you're seeing with like rappers like Little Uzi and things of that nature, they're underneath the effect of Judaism. But you would have to study both systems and know the vast differences of it. One system is with mama, one system is with papa. You know what I mean? And the papa that we're talking about is Abraham, and the mother that we're talking about is Sarah. So you see that reality in Isaac and Ishmael. Ishmael was a hunter, and if you understand, like if you study anthropology and you understand the mind state of a hunter has a vast mind because a hunter has to go out. The hunter leaves the village, and the hunter has to remember markers of lands that he traveled. He's not afforded the luxury to remember the small details. He remembers like, yeah, there was good deer over there past that mountain near the brook where those such and such trees, but that's a vast distance. Whereas if you stay in the house, it's small, it's detail, it's microphysics. Like if you ever want to surprise your woman and clean the house, especially if you got a woman that's a clean freak, right? And you swear you did a hell of a job, like you cleaned, you G'd out the whole house, and she'll come in not meaning nothing. She might go to the fireplace, she might go to the mantle, and just start turning stuff. And you be like, damn, she only turned it just a little bit, but it's because she's blessed with an analytical mind. Like a lot of dudes from prison, minds has been altered, or their nature has been altered in many different ways. Of course, we hear about the negative side, the stuff that happens to prison, as far as men and sexually gratifying themselves with other men. You know, the whole Solomon Gomorrah thing. We know all of that. But it affects all men, even men that doesn't participate in that nonsense and that foolishness, but they still alter you. Like I give you a prime example. I can remember us being in a hole, and when we had to go in the yard, the guards sometimes used to go in our cell and mess around with our stuff. So the average inmate or the average dude, when he comes back in his cell, he has cosmetics on his shelf. He could tell somebody barely moved it a little bit. So in that aspect, it gives us a sort of a female way of thinking, because that's really female. Because back in primitive times, the females, they stayed in the village, the men went out and did the hunting. So that's why most women are really by nature, they analytical, and they can peep the small things. And that's why initially in relationships that women beat men. And the reason why women beat men is we be thinking we slicker than them, but we feel to realize that our nature, thanks to our ancestors, are different. Whereas though, because she stayed in a hut, she stayed in the house all the time, her world was really small, so she paid attention to all the details. There was a reason for that, because she had the children. So if you know about children, they don't come out of the womb talking. So in order to really help that child properly develop, you have to be able to know every aspect of them, the small things, the things some men might not pay attention to. And ladies, you know I'm telling the truth. Your child might start crying. You know exactly the baby cry. You know what kind of cry that is. You know the difference between it's a hurt cry, it's a hungry cry, or mommy, I'm shitty, change my diapers. So it's a reason for why we think the way that we think and we do the things that we do. The problem is where we're malfunctioning, especially as a black community. Is like I said before, due to the music, a lot of weakness and a lot of deception and a lot of duplicity has crept in to our mind states. So you'll have a dude, he'll rip and run and roam the streets, being a hunter, catering to his nature, but the difference is them dudes had a system where they honored the family. It was all about the family. It was all about, like, people weren't promiscuous back in that time like that. And so the thing is you're doing these things and you're catering to your nature. You're being a man, but it's other stuff that come with being a man, not just having the ability to roam and be free and make man decisions, but you also got to be a man as far as how you interact with your woman and how you interact with your children. So the women, they can pick up because they can pick up on small things. So you may be thinking you spinning her, got a joint or got another phone. She can pick up on the smallest things. And that's the reason why. But we're straying a little bit off of when we dealing with the cross, because that was the subject matter, the cross and the ankh. So when we deal with the cross and the ankh, the the beauty of embracing both of them, because I think what we need to understand is we are having a tendency that we don't want to embrace the cross and the things that it represents and the things that it came with, because we don't associate that with us. But like I said before, if you understand the process of the Egyptians and how the Egyptians wanted to defy death, they had to go through death. Now, this is going to, and I don't mean this on a racist shit, I mean this on some actual truthful shit. The reason why, like, if you look at a lot of Caucasians right now, they're like big on back to Africa. We're just on this wave right now. Like, I was just on my Instagram and a young kid, I think he's from South Philly, Southside Jude, and he did a post where he was crying. He said he don't want to be here, he want to go to Africa, because I think Meek Mills just went to Africa. This whole thing, obsession with us wanting to go to Africa and stuff like that, if you study, the Caucasians been on that like 20 years ago. Like, literally, they've been on some Africa stuff. Like, there's a Jewish reggae star, white kid, Matthews Yahoo from Brooklyn, New York. I remember like 10 or 10 years ago, he had a hoodie on with the continent Africa on there. They've been running to Tanzania, Africa, not Nigeria, not Gandhi. The whites has been running to Tanzania, Africa for some time now, because their whole thing is they want to come back home. They want it, and the home is the original fold. Because everybody on the planet, I don't care what your color, what your shade is, you started off as black. So when we dealing with the Egyptians and the journey that they wanted to take through life, and they had to go through death, and they had the death is a group of people, and their name actually has their name actually has death in their name. So you know what I mean? Like, when the term Caucasian, it's a combination of two words. It's Asian and caucus. A caucus is something dead. But they reversed the game and called us dead black. We wasn't really the dead ones. And that's part of another story of the Garden of Eden, when they got kicked out of the Garden of Eden, and the plan was for them to come back, but they received clothes, but it didn't say clothes, it said skins. So at the end of the day, when you read the Garden of Eden, you're dealing with certain spirits and souls. So it's a really, really deep concept, and it's not to be taken on a racist joint, but at the same time, my philosophy is you have to understand what's really going on and reach that final stage. That third stage, that last and final stage, is you have to have the ability to put the ankh, which represents a culture, a way of life, and a thinking and a process, along with the cross. You have to be able to merge those two together, because from those two is going to come that third element, which will be us finally resurrecting, and those magical spells that we cast in the pyramid text and the Book of the Dead becoming a real manifestation truth. And to try to stop that now, what they're doing is there's a lot of propaganda popping off, and there's a lot of stuff popping off where as though they're trying to stop us from, like, they're putting out a lot of false black stuff. They don't want you reading and studying the white stuff, and it's crazy, because it's all information, it's all knowledge, and it all stems from one source. You have to embrace the cross and you have to embrace the ankh because they represent the process of a people, a journey of a people. Look at it like this: the ankh is Egypt, the cross is that time period, the 40 years in the desert. And then it's going to be a new sign and a new symbol that's going to resurrect itself, which is going to be a combination of the ankh and the cross. But that new symbol is going to be a formulation of the mind, because remember, the mind dictates the body, so it has to be a reality first in the mental. So in order to produce that shape, in order to produce that reality, like prime example, there are some people that say that we're all aliens that crash land on this earth, and our objective is to leave the earth because they say the earth is a prison. Now let's just take that concept and grab it and ride with it just for a little bit, right? So suppose you really was an alien, right? But because the crash, certain things, your equipment got ruined to prevent you from space travel. But suppose what is supposed to will aid you in space travel is your mind. So you spend all of these thousands of years of trying to build your mind back up and fix your mind to leave the planet. So you're sitting here and your first thing, you look up at the sky and you know your home is up at the sky and you say, man, I wish I could fly. Next thing you know, you vibe hard and the energy that you produce here, it starts manifesting itself out of the clay. And next thing you see, because your body is entrapped in the clay, and the next thing you see something fly in the air. You say, yeah. So you got this energy flying because we all material and we all matter. So later on you call it a bird. But that's not your ultimate goal. You're trying to get that energy to rise to the point that it can leave this earth. So the next thing you do, you make a plane which mimics a bird. I'm getting close because there's things that I need. The bird power is not going to be strong enough to get me off this planet. But it's a start because it got me in the air. Now the next thing is the plane. With the plane, I'm mastering speed. I'm mastering everything. So the bird go from the ground and flies up in the air. Next, I need that plane. There's your cross. So once I master that and putting these two realities together, but they're different because one is considered like a machine and one is considered nature. The problem that we haven't learned how to fuse those two together, because those two fusions of those two life forces together is what we actually really are and what we were. So once we master that, then we can make a spaceship and we can all be out of here. I'm just saying, hypothetically speaking. Just something to think about. You see what I'm saying? Just hypothetically speaking. But all in all, whether you agree with that or not, I say hypothetically speaking, it still is relevant in the sense of we got to recondition our mind or how we think. We're going to make it out here. This shit is so much deeper. And you got people that's trying to imprison us and they don't want our minds free. So they play a game of separation. Don't get caught up in the game of separation when it comes to you acquiring truth and power. Who you sleep with, who you kiss, who you love, that's your choice. I'm not here trying to tell you on some Rodney King, can we all just get along? But at the same time, I'm going to read what I want to read. I'm going to study what I want to study. And I'm going to take the information I want to take to empower myself, to fix myself so I can get off of the ground and I can fly and become the star that I was meant to be. And right now, that's the most important thing ever. Especially when you go into the science, you understand resurrection, because the cross also has to do with resurrection. Resurrection is seen in the cross and the ankh. So in one sense, we're trying to go forward to manifest this new sign or symbol, but in another aspect, we're trying to go back. We're trying to make the transition from cross to ankh, which is eternal life. And eternal life will only come with elevation and evolving of the mind. We have to get our minds out of the dirt. So some of the stuff that I said in these videos, of course, please don't take it literally. It's metaphorically. It's a metaphor with a life that you can take and you can embrace and you can make it your own, because it's not mine. And that's why I'm not coming at you with no title. I'm not saying that I'm the grand poobah, I'm this or I'm that. Nah, I'm just a regular dude that figured some shit out. I sat, I vibed, and I asked questions, and I try to figure them out. And that's what we all must do. So with that said and done, and remember, at the end of the day, it's about freedom. But before you can free somebody else, you have to free yourself. And freedom starts here. Before Harriet Tubman was able to free other slaves, put it together, they said she used to travel from down south up north following the star constellations. So at some point in some time in between her picking cotton, whatever dingy work, slave work that they had her doing, she still took the time to fall back, look up at the skies, get deep and ponder. And from looking at stars in the sky and keeping her ears open, what she heard about abolitions in the North, and it was freedom for blacks in the North. She had to, out of being a slave and going through that, she had, look what how did she come up with that? Oh, I can just follow these stars. She even had access to a gun. She got a gun. She organized. She became, come on, and she was a slave. She set a pattern, man. She set a pattern. And it's going to get deeper. I think my next video is going to be entitled New York, New York. I think we're going to deal with New York in my next video. We're going to deal with New York and our love and hate affair with New York. So with that said and done, y'all have a blessed day. I'm feeling wonderful right now. My mind is nice. And I hope that this, if nothing more, opens some doors in your mind to make you ponder on shit just a little bit different. Because at the end of the day, that's my whole aim and purpose. I'm just trying to make you see shit from a different angle. I'm trying to make you think outside of the box. I'm trying to make you use sacred geometry and rearrange that cross that people are trying to cross you up in your life. And I'm trying to get you to elude that casket. So with that said and done, have a wonderful day.